In the final years of World War II, as Nazi Germany bled on every front, Hitler turned to an unlikely force to fill the ranks. Not soldiers of the army, but men of the skies. They were airmen, ground crews, mechanics, and clerks, suddenly transformed into infantry. This is the story of the Luftwaffe Field Divisions, one of the strangest and most desperate experiments in the crisis. By late 1941, the German army, the Wehrmacht, was stretched thin. On the Eastern Front, millions of men were dead, wounded, or frozen in the endless snows of Russia. Hitler's dream of a lightning war, a blitzkrieg, had collapsed into a brutal war of attrition. The Luftwaffe, however, still had men to spare. Its ranks were swollen with hundreds of thousands of airbase personnel, mechanics, and anti-aircraft gunners, men with little to do as Allied air power increasingly dominated the skies. So Hermann Göring, the proud and jealous commander of the Luftwaffe, came up with a plan. Rather than send his men to the army, he would keep them under his command and create his own ground divisions. Thus were born the Luftwaffe Field Divisions, soldiers of the air forced to fight on land. Between 1942 and 1943, around 22 Luftwaffe Field Divisions were formed. Each division consisted of roughly 7,000 to 8,000 men, often hastily trained and poorly equipped. They wore Luftwaffe blue uniforms, not the traditional gray of the army, and they marched under the Luftwaffe eagle. But their training was far from adequate. Many had never fired a rifle before being sent into battle. Their first major deployment came on the Eastern Front. In places like Veliky Luki, Smolensk, and Nevel, regions already soaked in blood. They faced the Red Army, hardened by 2 years of relentless warfare. Reality hit fast and brutally. Within weeks, Luftwaffe Field Divisions began to suffer catastrophic losses. These were airmen, not infantry. They lacked the discipline, tactics, and instincts of seasoned ground troops. And their leadership, mostly Luftwaffe officers with no land combat experience, was disastrously unfit for the job. By early 1943, some divisions lost over 50% of their men in just a few weeks of combat. The Soviet forces tore through their thin defensive lines. In one tragic episode near Nevel, an entire Luftwaffe division was annihilated in less than a month. Even the German High Command could no longer ignore the failure. By late 1943, Hitler reluctantly ordered the surviving divisions to be transferred to the army. They were reclassified as Felddivision L, meaning Luftwaffe Field Division, but now under army control. However, the damage was already done. The divisions had been decimated. Thousands of men were dead. Others were absorbed into existing army units, vanishing from the order of battle. What remained of Göring's Pride project became a symbol of arrogance and desperation, a monument to how far the Nazi regime was willing to go to hide its weakness. The Luftwaffe Field Divisions were never meant to exist. They were born not from strategy, but from ego, Göring's refusal to let the army control his men. Historians later called them a tragic waste of human life. Their story revealed a deep flaw in the Nazi war machine, the rivalry and fragmentation between its branches. While Germany still had brilliant soldiers and advanced weapons, its leadership was divided by pride and politics. And that, more than Allied firepower, may have sealed its fate. When the war finally ended in 1945, the Luftwaffe Field Divisions were little more than a footnote in history, a forgotten army of airmen who died far from the skies they were meant to rule. They remind us that in war, power without unity becomes weakness, and pride can destroy even the mightiest of machines.